part of our role here is what we give back to the community. I know all of us, we earlier talked about the commitments we believe in as Rotarians and the things that we do, say, and do. One of those commitments is to give back to the community. And that's why I'm so happy that we've been able to, on an ongoing basis, contribute monies and dollars to the city of Bloomington and really across this entire region. So what I'm going to do is have our foundation president come up and give a little bit of a presentation. And don't, as you come up, don't worry, I'm just going to run out there real quick because I want to just get a little piece of meat. But I'll be right back.
Okay. Many of you know that our Rotary Club sponsored the STRIVE program, which was for our students in both of our high schools. SOAR was at Jefferson and STRIVE was at Kennedy. These were for students that had the potential to achieve and go on to college or higher education of some sort, who might not be prepared to try to do that right now. And so STRIVE was designed to catch them while they were still in high school, give them some mentoring, and see if we couldn't encourage them to go on. And so we always gave scholarships at the end of that program to every student who deserved it, who had been there 100% of the time, or at least had a very good academic record with the STRIVE program. And so Rotarians over all of the years were contributing dollars toward these scholarships. Well, we had amassed quite a large amount of money, as you're going to see today. The STRIVE program changed. Our school system handled was handling these students in a slightly different way, and it worked better with the school district, it worked better with the students. And so we, as a club, will not be doing the STRIVE program this year and into the future. Those dollars, we are now going to start to distribute those out to various organizations that give scholarships to these same types of students that we would have otherwise been serving. The first organization is the Education Foundation of Bloomington, and I will start with them. The Education Foundation, Tiffany Shermack is their president, and the Education Foundation works with our seniors graduating. And today we are presenting Tiffany a check in the amount of $50,000 from our foundation funds. Tiffany, come on over here so you're not in the middle of... That $50,000, we are suggesting that it should last at least the next 5 years. We will learn from the Education Foundation of those students that receive these scholarship grants, and hopefully we will visit with some of them in club meetings. We will try to keep in touch in some ways, and so the Education Foundation always has them try to write thank you notes, and so we will have some form of communication back and forth. Tiffany is going to tell us a little bit about the work of the foundation with scholarships.
Thank you, Karyn, and thank you to the Rotary. I'm just going to kind of stand. I'm height challenged, as you can see, and that bell is right in my view. As Karyn mentioned, one of the primary program areas of our foundation is awarding scholarships to those seniors graduating from Jefferson and Kennedy high schools in Bloomington. We do have other programming that you'll hear a little bit about later on as well, but scholarships is the primary program that does draw most of our funds. I grabbed just a couple numbers because some of you know me, some of you may not. I'm a CPA, so I'm a numbers person. So just a few numbers. I was looking back. Our foundation has been in existence since the 1980s. And some of you also know that Rotarians represent on the foundation as well. So Karyn has been an invaluable piece to the Education Foundation as she is here to the Rotary, and Bob Erickson has had critical involvement with our Education Foundation, among others. So there's a lot of overlap there. But since I kind of just looked back at our scholarship activity, I looked back at the last 10 years, And in the last 10 years, our foundation has awarded roughly $750,000 in scholarships. So that's $750,000. But what I broke down then is the first 5 years was about $250,000, and then the most recent 5 years has been $500,000. So our foundation has been fortunate enough to be the recipient of gifts like this from the Rotary, along with gifts from other sources that has allowed us to really broaden our reach to more students to help them further their education. So we're seeing a large increase because of the resources we've been, that we've acquired and been entrusted with. We've seen a large increase in what we're able to do and the impact we can have. The other thing is, I just looked at the last 5 years. On average, we award about 75 scholarships. More recently, it's been about 100 per year, so we're able to benefit about 100 students a year with the scholarships we manage.
That's fantastic. I'm going to have Tiffany. Tiffany is going to stay up here now for another couple minutes, because the second check that we are going to give out, which is also going to be for scholarships, but they're scholarships of a slightly different type. One of the programs of the foundation is called Student Success Stipends. This is for students who basically have an economic issue here in Bloomington, and Bloomington is really diverse. So students whose families can't always afford everything, or can't afford an extracurricular course like with community ed or a music lesson. Sometimes we have to supply clothing and so on and so forth. So these stipends are designed to help students with different needs. Well, we, as a Rotary Club, got connected with the middle school sports over the last couple of years. And our foundation would like to give $11,000 for student stipends to help to support the middle school sports program for uniforms for the students who are participating in a team sport, where a team would have a whole set of uniforms or a whole set of sweatshirts or whatever it is, with a lot of students because of our diversity, especially on the east side. For those students who couldn't afford the $50, for a fancy sweatshirt or whatever. So we already have a grant from the middle school sports, and these dollars are going to help cover that grant. So, Tiffany, did you want to say anything more?
Yes. So our Student Success Stipend program, the funds that the Rotary has been able to provide now is going to benefit, as Karyn said, directly the middle school athletic program. Our stipends typically go out in the nature of helping fund field trips, helping fund drama activities, helping fund some other additional things in the classroom, outside of the classroom for our students. And not necessarily specifically for athletics. So this grant in particular, I'm really excited to see the reach it can have to help reach that sector of our students that need just a little bit extra to be able to stay involved. Dr. Melby can attest to this. Research shows that students that have after-school extracurricular activities and can stay engaged are far more successful, and the grad rate, it benefits the grad rate long-term. So these funds are very, very important. Our Student Success Stipend program, typically we award about $20,000 a year in total for stipends, and this year alone, we're a fiscal June 30 year, so we're halfway through our year, and we've already awarded $20,000 this year alone. So there's definite need. There always has been need. We're just trying to make sure we get the word out in front of our staff in the buildings so they know that the resources are available, but this will definitely be very helpful.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
And thank you.
I have a third check. Jane, would you come forward, please?
Showing that identity.
All right. We have already distributed $25,000 to Hennepin Technical College. And we are now in the process of working out all of the criteria for those scholarships. They will be for graduating Bloomington or Jefferson students throughout the years as they come back to school or start their college education at Hennepin Technical College. We are just giving another $25,000 to the Normandale Community College Foundation. Jane is the development.
Executive Director, just call me that.
Good, I'm glad I don't have to know her title. Anyway, for the same purposes. There's a slight difference between the two schools. Normandale Community College is really connected here in Bloomington, therefore a lot of our Bloomington students might go over to Normandale. That is not quite the case with the Hennepin Technical College, so that's why we're agreeing with them that we're going to support at all ages, because there's a lot of people who have been graduates of our schools that are in the midst of career change or want to have new skills or whatever, and they will go back to school. So we want to support all of that. It's really fantastic, and these will all be scholarships to help those students. Each of these $25,000 packets of money is going to hopefully last at least 5 years and maybe even longer. So, Jane, did you want to talk a little bit about your scholarship program?
Yes. Fun fact, first of all, thank you very much. Especially right now, the state of Minnesota, I don't know how well publicized this is, has a scholarship shortfall. Do you guys know about this? Typically, if you fill out a Pell, you fill out a FAFSA, you get your Pell Grant, the next piece of money you get is from the state of Minnesota. It doesn't have a fancy name. It's not a fancy program. The state of Minnesota goes, okay, here you go. Here's some money because you're Pell eligible. And then the next thing is you get a scholarship from us, and then you get some money, maybe, from North Star Promise. Well, the state ran out of money. Imagine that. So now, these scholarships are even more meaningful because we have students who are halfway through the year that don't have all the money they were promised. So just know that this is extra appreciated. Fun fact, one of the reasons I'm successful at my job is because of Tiffany. She's my CFO. She's a CFO for hire. So, and we're I'm so happy with her, and she's got a great head for numbers. They specialize in nonprofits, just FYI. Thank you all, and we always try to get you the thank you notes, and I don't think that'll be any different, but it's just going to be, the student support services staff is going to be excited to hear that there's more coming in. Thank you.
Oops. And thank you to all of you Rotarians who donated these dollars over these years to make all of this possible. Imagine that, $111,000 was just distributed. Thank you. Okay.
I personally never realized how hard it was to give money away. And Karyn, I think, has been instrumental in making sure that our funds went out efficiently, equitably, and legally. And I'm gonna tell you, without her, I guarantee you, I would have not had an idea. So we owe her a big debt.
All right, well, whoa, shrink down on me here. I am not an accountant, but I think that was $86,000? $111,000. See, you can tell my wife is the accountant at my house. I had to make sure I got that wrong, so she takes care of it all. Well, again, thank you, all of you, for that contribution, and it will make a measurable difference in those folks' lives that it will impact. Certainly, those types of scholarships help my family to get to where I am today, and some people may love that, some people may hate that. So that's okay. So without any other ado, I want to introduce our speaker, Tony. Hopefully I got this right. Sasso? Mm-hmm. Oh, good. Okay. Nervous about that. I get it right.
If you say so.
And so I don't want to take away from your presentation, but I want to give you enough time here to get rolling here. So we've got to start a little later with the items. So we'll have you come up here. Let me know if you need anything.
Well, thank you very much. I appreciate the opportunity to speak here. As you will find out in my presentation, I am not shy. The friends will say that I never met a microphone I didn't like. So I don't even usually use a microphone, but I will speak loud enough so you can hear me. I'd like to thank Sarah for contacting me and inviting me to this presentation. There's nothing I like better than talking about myself and talking about travel as well. So usually when I come to things like this, the first thing people say is, well, who is this guy? I don't know him. He's not a politician. He's not a celebrity. He's not a sports figure. So who is he? So I decided that I was going to start off with, okay, so who is Tony Sasso? Who am I? All right. So first of all, I was born and raised in Connecticut. I am not a native Minnesotan. All right, so I'm not from here. I don't talk like a Minnesotan yet. I've actually been all over the country, and I've developed accents from all four corners of the country, but I'm still working on that. I am very blessed in the fact that my mom and dad are still alive. I know it doesn't look like I'm that old. I'm 62 years old. And my mom is smart. She lives in Florida. My dad still lives in Connecticut. That's where I was, born and raised in Connecticut. So I'm from the Northeast. I went to Boston College, graduated from Boston College, or I should say Boston College, in 1984. I spent 4 years there. So I just have a question for the group. When you think of Boston College, does any name come up in mind at all? Does anyone? Doug Flutie, exactly. Doug Flutie, Heisman Trophy winner. Doug Flutie graduated in 1985. So I was there for 3 years out of the 4 years that Doug Flutie was at Boston College, and I was in the marching band, so I got to go to every single football game that Doug Flutie played. Of course, I missed the very last year when he threw the miracle in Miami pass and won the Heisman Trophy, but still. So someday I'd like to, when I announce this, anybody from Boston College, I would love to hear people say, oh yeah, that's where Tony Sasso went. Yeah. So when I graduated from college, I entered the Air Force right away. So have you seen the movie Officer and a Gentleman with Richard Gere, right? That's what I did. I went right into officer training school because I decided I didn't want to be a corporate lawyer or a CPA, no offense. And I wanted to serve my country, and I wanted to fly. So I decided to join the Air Force. Unfortunately, I didn't have 20/20 vision, so I couldn't go to pilot training. I went to navigator training. So I was a C-130 navigator for 20 years. If you don't know what a C-130 is, just look at the airport. The big airplanes that are across the runways from the airline terminal. That's what the C-130s are. So I went there for 20 years. I got over 3,500 hours of flying, flown all over the world. We could spend all day talking about just the different places I've been to. I won't do that. I'll spare you that. But as far west as Japan and Korea, and as far east as Kyrgyzstan, which is just about on the border of China. I did a lot of that in the Minnesota Guard. I did get my master's in operations management from the University of Arkansas. SUI, go Razorbacks. And then I moved to Minnesota in 1993. So I've been here for about, I don't know, whatever the math is, a little more than 30 years. It's been great. It was funny, my last assignment in the Air Force was in Little Rock, Arkansas, and I was moving to Minnesota. And now I still have a hard time when people say to me, well, I'm going to go up north for the weekend. Wait a minute, aren't we already up north? It's so hard to get a hold of it. What do you mean up north? Well, speaking of up north, that's my daughter, 32 years old. I was in Minot, North Dakota last weekend. Yes, the coldest weekend of the year in Minot. It was a minus 24 temperature, minus 34, 40 wind chill. It did the old, I boiled the water, threw it up in the air. She took a video. It, instantly vaporized. So, yeah, you got to do that. She is pregnant with my first coming up grandchild, first one after all these years, so I had to go visit her. My son also is a brainiac. He is a test engineer for Lockheed Martin. He thought about going to the Air Force, didn't do it, decided to go the engineering route. He's now getting his doctorate in engineering from Penn State University. He's out in Colorado Springs. So I did have 20 years in the military, in the Air Force. This is kind of unique because I never thought I would ever be in these places around the world. Picture on the left is me and my crew in Kandahar, Afghanistan, in front of the airport sign. And then on the right, this was our mission trip to Kyrgyzstan. The guy in the middle is Paul O'Neill. At the time, he was the U.S. Secretary of the Treasury, the guy that actually signed his name on the dollar bills. But we had a mission for that. So in addition to the military, I spent 10 years of active duty, and then The next 10 years after I moved from Arkansas was in the Minnesota Air National Guard. So I was a part-time guard person, and I also worked in the airlines. I started working for Northwest Airlines for 14 years. I worked on the DC-9, the DC-10, and the A320 Airbus. And then Delta moved into town and merged. Okay, call it merged. They bought out Northwest. You know, when they first merged together, they said, we're going to take the combination of Northwest Airlines and Delta Airlines and create one airline. So they took Delta from Delta Airlines and Airlines from Northwest Airlines, and they created Delta Airlines. Imagine that. So I did get to work for Delta for 2 years, and then when Delta said everybody has to move out of the state and move to Atlanta, Georgia, I said, no, thank you. My kids were in North Dakota, so I decided to stay in Minnesota, and I started working for Sun Country Airlines. So I worked for Sun Country for 11 years on the 737. So I've taught on the DC-9, the DC-10, the A320, and the 737. Now, I remember I told you I didn't have 20/20 vision. I couldn't go to pilot training, so was I ever a pilot for any of these airplanes in the airline? No. I was in ground training. I taught pilots how to fly. I spent 20 years telling pilots where to go. Same thing in the Air Force. Yeah. Could I actually fly one of these planes if I had to? Oh, you betcha I can, right? And I won't talk about the illegal time when I actually flew an A320 from Minneapolis to Denver. But the fact is yes, I could fly. Now, people always say, well, how could you teach people how to fly? I don't even have a pilot's license, not even a regular civilian pilot's license, nothing. They say, how can you do that for 27 years? And I'll just ask you, do you think you could teach somebody how to drive a car without having a driver's license? Yeah. So I could teach the procedures, but actually getting in the plane, I wasn't allowed to do that. Now, of course, these days, anybody with any type of vision, LASIK, contacts, you bet you can be a pilot in pilot training because there's such a shortage. But not for me at the time. So in addition to all my airline stuff, just another quick thing about my background. I'm also in the performing arts. I was just hoping that someone would recognize me from being on stage, but I guess not. Nah. I've been performing in musicals and plays. I'm actually the chair of the Rosemont Area Arts Council. That's where I live. And so I've been on stage. That's why I love microphones. I love being up in front of people. It's just not one of my fears like a lot of the other people in the world. And this next thing, this has absolutely nothing to do with travel, but it's one of my really big pushes. I have been donating blood ever since I was 17 years old. 3 more donations, I'll hit 55 gallons. So there's a large proportion of the population that is eligible to donate, but they just don't because they're afraid of needles. They think it's going to hurt. This is just my campaign to push out there. There's such a need for blood these days, and so if you can do it, go forward. So yeah, it's a great time. So after all that, why am I in the travel business? Well, pretty simple. Like I said, 20 years in the Air Force and 27 years in the airlines. I've pretty much been all over the world. And so when someone says to me, hey, have you ever been to, I could say, oh, yes, I have. Or no, but I've sent somebody there. All right, I mean, talking all over the place, some of the wonderful things. I've been to 6 different continents, so the only one I haven't been to is Antarctica. Well, actually, yeah, I haven't been to Antarctica. I've been to New Zealand. So technically, I can say I was in Australia, but I wasn't. But I haven't been to Antarctica yet, right? That's still one of my bucket list. I'm a big fan of cruises. Anybody been on cruises in here? Okay, so what I found in the cruise world is there's these people that say, you're never going to get me on a boat. No way. And other people say, you're never going to get me off of that boat. Cruises are amazing. It's a very, very valuable and very inexpensive, to be honest, the way to take a vacation. It's wonderful for kids. There's so many things that are on the ship for kids, and then there's special cruises just for the adults when you get into your golden years. So, yeah, I'm a big fan of them, and I always warn people that once they go on their first cruise, they're going to get hooked, and they're going to want to go on another one and another one. And that's why they have the next cruise desk on all the cruise ships, so you can sign up for your next one while you're on the ship, while you got the bug. But really, most importantly, and this is really the truth as far as the travel industry is concerned, I really believe in the value of family vacations. I've been doing it with my kids for so many years, and I've seen so many people, and I've heard of so many people that say, well, we're just going to wait until next year. We're just going to wait until we get enough money to do this, and next thing you know, something happens, and they never get out there, and they regret. And so I really have been pushing this. My kids are spoiled, all right? Not only working in the airline industry, but also in the military, having the military discounts. I took my 2 kids all over the place. And again, it got to such a point that when we would travel on airplanes, they would really be mad if we didn't get first class. I can't believe it. Look at those people up there. We should be, because we got so used to flying in first class all the time. But it's just been incredible stuff with my kids all over the world. Now they're older, and so it's harder to get them away for vacations, but I still try to do that. I try to take them on separate vacations when I can. The last big thing I went to, everybody know where this is? Machu Picchu, yeah. Unbelievable trip with my son. I can't believe I didn't get a picture with me and my son together. We got individual ones. Believe me, he was there. He was there with me because he took this picture, right? But we had a great 5-day trip to Peru, and it was funny because we went with this organized tour group, and he thought, oh my gosh, I'm the youngest kid there, I'm 24 years old, there's gonna be a bunch of old people, and it wasn't. It was quite a variety of ages, and Michael being the engineer, he was the pick of everyone. Hey, I can't get this on my phone, can you help me with this? So he was the expert, and he just had a great time. So one of the biggest things that impacted the travel industry, of course, happened in 2020. It was this, what was this little disease that was kind of coming around? Yeah, the COVID pandemic. And so there was a huge impact on the travel industry at that time. And I was fortunate enough that I was working for Sun Country at the same time I was running my travel business, so I was still had a sustainable income. There's lots of travel agents that they had to quit because they just couldn't make a living when this happened. So what happened during COVID? Well, first of all the cruise lines shut down, right? So if you're a cruise fan, now you were done because nobody was getting on a ship. They were all blocked, so many restrictions. And then if you went outside of the country and you had to come back again, you had to take a COVID test before you got on an airplane, all right? That's why cruises were totally out of the picture, but people say, well, I can still fly out of the country. So what did they do? They took all these Caribbean resorts and they set up these medical stations so you can get your COVID test. Right, okay. Well, if it weren't for the industry and the fact that they needed travelers there, they wouldn't be so much intent on we need to set up all these facilities so people won't be afraid to come to the country. Now, were they really accurate? I don't know. I mean, right, you go in, you get the swab and stuff like that, but there were so many all over the place in every single Caribbean station, but it did keep up at least the industry there. Alaska cruise is extremely popular because it's a short season. They were shut down for 2 years, not just for COVID, but because of Canada. So little known fact, if you take an Alaskan cruise and you depart out of Seattle, which is a U.S. port, and the ship is owned and registered under a foreign country, which most of them are, if you take off from a U.S. port, before you return to that U.S. port, you have to stop in a foreign country somewhere. That's why every Alaska cruise stops in Vancouver or Victoria, British Columbia. It's a maritime law. Well, Canada said, nobody's coming to our ports. So if you cut off all the ships going into Canada, no more Alaska cruises. So anybody that wanted an Alaska cruise, had it on the books, got canceled, had to wait 2 years. And so now the demand is just incredible for Alaska because they're still trying to catch up from the people that could. And it's just a short season. You're talking about May, June, July, August. September gets kind of cold, and that's about it. All right. Of course, everybody had to wear masks. That was a crazy thing. Mask everywhere, which is, again, I don't know how you feel about COVID, but I think you're out there on the deck of the ship outside and you're wearing a mask. It just doesn't make sense to me. Or I would see people driving in their car by themselves with a mask on. Sorry. But masks were required everywhere. And then this thing for the U.S. tours. Well, if you can't go out of the country, you can't go on a cruise ship. So all of a sudden, the popularity for all the national parks in the Southwest, they really became very popular, right? And another thing became very popular, which all travel agents can't stand, is this new word that came in the industry, staycation. Exactly, staycation. I'm not going to go on vacation. I'm just going to stay home. All right, and that another big hit on the travel industry for people that I'm just going to stay and work on the house instead of go out and enjoying the rest of the world. So I wanted to bring up a couple numbers and statistics about people and traveling. All right, and I got these from the U.S. Travel Association. Now I went back before COVID. So I went back to the year 2019 when I looked up this information. Because you can say, well, after COVID, I can understand why people would stop traveling and stop taking vacations, right? So let's take it before COVID. So these are statistics, again, vacation statistic from 2019. Now, everybody knows that you get vacation when you work, And if you don't use it, there's a use it or lose it policy, right? Okay, so just a question. In the year 2019, now I'm talking about the entire United States, not just, Minnesota. How many vacation days do you think were unused? All right, so I ended up the year in December and I didn't use my vacations. Now, if you take the total across the United States of how many vacation days, how many do you think? Anybody guesses? 120?
I said
20? No, I'm talking about world total combined, 20, yeah. 20 million? Okay, 20 million. Anybody else? 1.5 million. Okay. Any other guesses? 500 million. You're getting closer. 768 million vacation days. 768 days of vacation that were not used. All right, and then you think, okay, so I didn't use them, well, at least I can carry them over till the next year. All right. How many of those 768 million vacation days were lost, completely lost? 236 million vacation days were lost, use it or lose it. And as a person in the travel industry, this is just so disheartening to think that. And not only that, not only is it, for personal reasons, but also the economic loss. If you took the amount of money that was, for those vacation days that you lost, it ends up to be over $65.5 billion of lost vacation time. It's unbelievable. Well, not only that, if people actually did use their vacation time, here's what would happen to the industry. There'd be $151.5 billion in additional spending. If you think of all the agencies that impact. So a lot of that money in the economy lost completely because of people not using their vacation. All right? That also would equate to about 2 million American jobs. People that are working in the travel industry, like travel advisors. Right? So it's a huge economic impact. And also, again, as a travel agent, it's just so disheartening to see this. So, what are the benefits of taking a vacation, right? So that's really the impetus. Why should you be taking a vacation? And you can look at this. There's huge health studies on this. First of all, less stress. You get a break from the daily grind of doing the same thing over and over again. You got to break away from that. And you know what's funny? I listened to 107.8, Cool 108. And every once in a while they have John Tesh. And he was, remember that Entertainment Tonight? And he has something called IFL, Intelligence for Life. And he always gives these little tidbits about things that are, and he was just talking about travel last week. And that was just so appropriate because I had put this together and now I'm hearing on the radio, it's talking about the same things. So a break from the daily grind for all the men in the room, all right? Studies have shown you get 30% likely less to suffer a heart attack by going on vacation and getting away, right? I don't have the statistics for women. Mental health. All right, reduces depression, anxiety, a break from constantly worrying about what's going. Get away, just get out, relax, go to Bali or Fiji, right? Yeah, Fiji. Yeah, there you go. Get out, go to Fiji, right? And enhance productivity. So most people think that I gotta stay at work because everything's going to go wrong, and I have to be able to because I'm working this job, and it's all going to fall to pieces if I get away, right? Studies have also shown you get away, you take a break, now you're refreshed, you're refocused, you come back with a new energy and a new source to kind of look at things in a different way. So there actually is a productivity increase by going on vacation. I would say for most of this, unless you have a really dysfunctional family, most of the time, when you go with your family, it's a good time, and you have fun, and you strengthen those relationships. I have booked tons of girls' trips. Girls' weekends out, girls' trips to the Caribbean, just getting away from the husbands, getting away from the boyfriends, all right? They love it. They have a blast just because they get away and they reconnect with their family and friends. I can tell you that I personally have reconnected so much individually with my kids, on a one-on-one basis with my son and my daughter when I take them on a separate vacation rather than both of them. One of the greatest things I did for my mom when she was turning 80 years old, she lives in Florida, like I said. I contacted her and I said, hey, Mom, we're going to go on a cruise. We're just going to go a quick 5-day cruise, just you and me. We're just going to get away from it. And we had planned this for months. What she didn't know is I had contacted everybody else in the family. So I had my sister, her husband, their 2 kids, my 2 kids, and we all surprised her when she showed up at the port. There was 9 of us together. And what's even better is we were kind of like, okay, who's going to room with mom? You know, so I was talking to a really good friend of mine at my church, and I was saying, yeah, and she knows my mother. Every time my mother visited, she would come and we'd go out to lunch and stuff. And I said, yeah, we got to find somebody to room with mom. She goes, I will. I said, you will? Yeah. So she came along with us. So it was all my family and my friend Carol. So it was just great. But it was such a great time to reconnect, and that's something obviously that we will never forget. Physical benefits too, right? Unless you're one that just likes to lay on the beach the entire time, there's lots of, even walking on the beach, the exercise that you get, lots of hiking, lots of outdoor activity, lots of exploring. When you're going to like Machu Picchu, I can't tell you how many steps we walked. And then being at 8,000 feet elevation, that was quite a workout. So it's just getting out there and being more active than just sitting in front of a desk the entire time. And again, finally, taking long vacations may increase your lifespan physically, mentally. I mean, all of these things you can look up a whole bunch of studies and you see all the benefits of getting away from the office, right? So many people do not go because they think everything's going to fall apart and I can't leave because I've got to be in control, but you need to get away. You need just to get out. And that's why I personally think that, and this is the motto I've used for my entire time, you can always make more money, right? Especially if you're CPA. But you can't make more memories. And so I've really focused on, for my family, is giving them experiences versus things, right? For gifts, birthdays, and Christmas and stuff like that. Right? Those are the things that they're really going to remember. And it just gives me so much joy when I can take a family with small kids that have never been on a big vacation before, and I send them away, and all I get back is the pictures, and the kids just had a great time, they loved it, and which is so much better than, we bought them a Nintendo or, some kind of gift or something like that. So I really, really focus on, when I work, is to really enhance the experiences, because I know how important it is and how valuable it is to get out there and have such a great time, whether it's family or whether it's friends. So that's it. I'm willing to obviously take any questions. I don't even know how much time we have, but if you got any questions at all, I am open. Yes, sir.
I've traveled a lot in business, but the question is, I know it's great to go some places, but getting there and getting back, that's where the stress can be. Like, let's just say you want to fly from here to Japan, whether you're about 12 hours on a plane or 10 hours or whatever with all the trouble. How can you reduce that down so it's not so stressful?
This is a plug, but you reduce the battle by getting somebody else to take care of it for you. Seriously. I'm serious. Because a lot of my clients are people that said, I sat online for 4 hours and I got nowhere, and I don't know what to do. And let me just take care of it for you. And that's one of the biggest things is what I get is people say, well, I didn't have to do a thing. I just told you where I wanted to go, and you took care of all the details. So if you get somebody to actually work with you, and let me, quite a rumor about travel agents, right? A lot of people think, oh shoot, now I got to pay this person money I'm not going to pay extra, or they're going to jack the prices up because I'm working with the travel agents. That is a total myth. Most, if not all, travel agents will work for no money at all. We don't charge any fees because we get paid by the cruise line, by the hotel, by the all-inclusive resort. They're the ones that pay us. So people say, well, wait a minute, why hire a travel agent? You're not really hiring, you're borrowing it, because at least for me, and like I said, a lot of the others in the industry, we get a piece of the pie. And it's not that our prices are higher, it's the fact that, if the cruise line's gonna make a certain amount of commission, we get a chunk out of that. And the cruise lines love it because we're bringing people to their business. So I would think that would probably be one thing, is to get rid of that stress, is to have someone take care of the details.
That's after you got there. But going there, how can you reduce that stress you have getting to that location. Like if you wanted to go to Peru, you still had to fly there.
Right.
Okay, and that's where there's a whole, to me, it's a stressful thing of getting to that location. Sure, I understand, we use Road Scholar, is what we've used on many trips. And so, but still getting to that location is where it becomes stressful.
Yeah, and until I can invent the transporting from Star Trek to get you right there, at least for right now, I have to rely on airplanes and ships to get there. But yeah, I totally get it. It's just one of the things you have to just get out. If you know ahead of time, hey, it's going to take us this long to get there. But I think the reward you get from being at location, and when you come back, it's like it was all worth it. You know. Yes, sir.
For what it's worth, we're going to do our month in Hawaii starting in the middle of basically from Valentine's Day to St. Patrick's Day. But we all, in recent years, you have to schlep your bags back and forth. Like we'll stay at a Los Angeles airport hotel, which are really cheap on the weekends. Have the shuttle. You got to schlep our bags back and forth, but it's definitely worth it because then you got a 4-hour trip and a 5-hour trip. And when we go to Europe, sometimes we'll stay in Boston, or we'll just spend a night at the Amsterdam airport at an airport hotel for $120 or something like that. But then all of a sudden you take a nonstop from Amsterdam. So I don't know, we found that it helps a lot so we aren't wiped out when we get there or miss the first day or whatever, because we can then get on the 8:15 to Hawaii the next morning and have that whole first day. And it's, at least if you're retired, if you take that extra day on either end, we've found that's really beneficial.
Yeah, I always recommend that 100% especially for cruises, because I always recommend getting there the day prior. Even I'm working right now on a bunch of Trafalgar trips to Greece, and they start in Athens, but I'm arranging it so that they arrive in Athens the day prior to the trip starts. Even for any cancellations or delays or anything like that, right? Even a cruise down to Florida, get there the day prior. Right, because for something like that, you could be sitting on the deck because you got there the day prior. You get up in the morning, you get the inexpensive hotel, you have your breakfast, you casually get to the pier, you're on the ship, and you're watching all the people running like crazy who just flew in that day, and are scrambling to get to that. Yeah, that's a great idea. I always recommend that. Yes, sir. I'll get to you in a second.
One comment.
Yes, sir.
Article Wall Street Journal the last couple of days. More companies are giving unlimited vacation because people take less vacation than they. And the other thing that has always scared me out of trips, other than norovirus, is the regimentation. And I've been on shore and watched a cruise ship land, and everybody good night, ship work. And how do you avoid that? Are there particular trips that are better for that, or in terms of destinations?
Well, I think as far as cruises are concerned, the way they operate is that they pull into port, they have to empty the ship and load it up again. So there's always that transition period where they're coming in and coming out. So I think, and then they give you block times for when you can show up at the ship. I say just show up at 11 o'clock. Just get in line because they're going to let you on. They try to regiment that. As far as other trips are concerned, a lot of people have said, I want to just do my own thing. I don't want to be carted around on a bus and have somebody tell me what to do and where to go. What they've incorporated into a lot of these land tours is a day where you just do whatever you want. It's a free day. You get to a certain place. Yes, there are some, of course, there is a structure to it. But some of those tours where people don't want to be led around each way, every single part of the journey, again, the trips that they add in, there's optional ones. You can go or you can't, or you can just walk on the city and do it on your own thing. And a lot of people really take advantage of that without being carted around. But I know, personally for me, there's some people that say, I got Rick Steves' book. I'm just going to go and do it on my own. And that's great. If that's what you like, fine. Right? But even for this Machu Picchu tour, I said, no, we're going to go on an organized tour, and that tour guide was unbelievable. They're born in those countries. They know all about it. They give you so much more information than what I could have got out of a book. So that's nice to see that they're they're increasing the unlimited hours. Though I got to go over here first because he had his hand up. Yes, sir.
Extension of that hack for breaking up a trip is you can do that with longer international trips too. Fiji is 4 hours short of Australia and New Zealand, and Fiji Airlines is very accommodating if you want to stay over for up to 7 days and then continue your trip. No additional charge for the airfare. Same thing with Portuguese Airlines. They actively make it cheaper for you to stop over in Portugal for a destination farther on in Europe, and Iceland Air is particularly good for that too. So there are a bunch of hacks you can do to break up long airline trips.
Right. Yes, sir.
So I had a question when you mentioned Rick Steves and brought it up, because a lot of the time when we're going to a place, we'll do our research, I'll go to the library and get the most recent I can find of Romer's, Fodor's, and Rick Steves' eyewitness maybe on a given city. But they, let's say Rome, they'll list 4 or 5 cool places, but because they're in that book, they're all taken. Do you tend to have places in a lot of these towns that kind of have a similar kind of specialness, but aren't in the guidebooks?
Yeah, and again, there's nothing wrong with Rick Steves and nothing wrong with the guidebooks because obviously he's an expert in the industry. I do work with a vendor. It's called Viator. That's the vendor, and you can put every city in and list your dates, and it'll list out 150 different things, so you get your pick and choose. When I took my kids to Italy, we just wanted to get away out of the big city, and we went to Tivoli, where there's a huge aqueduct and a waterfall, and it was out in the country. It was it was so different from the concrete areas, and there was very little. It was not crowded at all, and so it was a little escape and a getaway for that. So.
Just a quick comment. What Larry said. I know when I was working, I had a round the world ticket, and I think they still do that. That you can go around the world, and you can do it on you just have one fare, and you can stop 15 places as long as you're going in a forward direction. So I left, and we were here, and I left, and went to, I was in Dubai and Korea and China and everything else, and back to San Francisco back here.
Yeah, they do that on cruise ships now. You can go on a cruise ship for 249 days and go all the way around the world. They have, of course, laundry on board the ship, and it's. And you may have heard this also. Sometimes it's for people that are in retirement homes. It's cheaper to live on a cruise ship than it is to go and see. Because you get your meals provided and you get your laundry, and it's seriously, and you go all over the world. So we're probably running out of time. So.
Unless we have any more questions, or.
Well, thanks very much. I sure appreciate you giving me a chance to talk about travel. I love it, obviously. So, yeah, thank you very much.
Well, and it's very timely, and I debated on whether or not I wanted to cut into your speech at the very beginning of it, because one of our most important parts of our city, I'm going to put my city council hat on, is, of course, folks that are vacationing at the Mall of America. Kurt just left here, and I know we have and I always get this wrong, so let me get this right, the Bloomington, Minnesota Travel and Tourism. I can't, you can't teach an old guy new tricks, so I got the new name. But certainly we experienced that here in the city when that pandemic hit. A big portion of our budget here in the city of Bloomington comes from those tourists coming along. So, when I see this thing here, it has a whole different meaning to me as a city council member because I freak out every time I think about any pandemics or that kind of thing happening. So I appreciate your coming here and giving this presentation because of the economic vitality that it has, not only in this region in the city of Bloomington, but really across this entire region. Going up north had never felt so different when that pandemic happened and occurred. And so I know if Bonnie was here, she would say thank you for your presentation.